This man here was signed by one of British football's most iconic managers.
He'd bring his dog into training, and if you caught his eye, he would hand you the dog lead and tell you to go and walk the dog.
And he played alongside one of British football's most iconic players.
Look at the size of him, he's half your size and he's winning tackles, and no that way I'm just looked up and it's me he's talking about, and I thought, I'll take that.
But he's most well known for his stints up here in Scotland, where he became a promotion-winning star with one club and then a bit of a hero with his boyhood team.
The tightest man I've ever played with.
This is Alan Mahood, and he's a Scottish football cult hero. Right, so Alan, what's happening here?
That was me signing for Nottingham Forest in the March of 1992. Flew down the day before, my mum and dad, and went in and spoke to the club. The manager wasn't there at the time, Brian Clough wasn't there, he was away filming a TV commercial. So I dealt with the chief scout and assistant manager, so that was me on my signing day.
There were quite a lot of clubs interested in you. Did you take notice of that at the time? Rangers, Liverpool, Chelsea?
I think at the time I was pretty naive, quite young. When I was 17, I was just playing football, and I think it was more the people around about me get excited about what could be and who I was. I mean, I trained with Liverpool for a couple of days, flew down, spoke to Chelsea, just didn't seem the club I wanted to sign for. Flew down to Nottingham, and it just seemed right. At the time they were playing a lot of young boys, Roy Keane, Scott Gelmo, these kind of guys were playing, and it just felt like the right fit.
Yeah, I mean, Forest was a huge club at the time, wasn't it? And what was Roy Keane as well like to train and play alongside?
I think he's probably was just as headstrong then as he is now. You could probably see he was going to have a great career, even at that young age. He's only a year older than me, but you could tell even then he was a man. He was 6'2" or whatever, and built well. He had a boxing background, I believe. I think he played a bit of the shinty or the Irish, whatever it is, Irish football. But you could tell he had a bit of belief in himself as well, and there was never any doubt he was going to make something.
And Brian Clough, you know, iconic manager, but your first meeting with him, I believe he said, "You're the Scotsman I've wasted all my money on." But was that just typical of what he was like?
Well, he was right. To be fair, I'll give him his credit, he was right. But I think that was just his way, and it was, I mean, he was a legend in there, so he could say and do what he wanted, and he generally did. And
for you, obviously, the injury kind of scuppered any chance you had, but you don't regret going down?
No, not at all, not at all. I'd actually had the chance I was supposed to go and speak to Rangers the day that I signed there, but again I felt it wasn't going to be the right move. We were bringing in a lot of English players, international players, and young boys weren't really getting a chance there, and I just felt that was the right move for me at the time.
This picture here.
Great picture, that's when we won the league with Morton. Obviously Arthur Montford in the middle of the celebrations, a great Morton supporter. But that was just one of the times. It was a great bunch of boys and everybody played for each other, and we had a great time while we were doing it.
When in that season did you think we're going to do this, or we're favourites to do it? Did you ever even feel like that?
I think as you gather momentum in these, same as every team, you gather a bit of momentum and you're winning games, and you're maybe just losing the odd game or dropping the odd point. You're thinking, we had it in our sights, and I don't think we spoke about it much, but I think in the background when you're talking to players individually, it was one of the things we thought, this could happen.
Has Morton had a better midfield since back in those days? You, Derek McInnes, Lindberg, I mean, that was a fantastic midfield. That
was decent. It was a decent midfield. I can't comment on that, that's not for me to say, but we were at a wee 150th reunion last month. It was organised by one of the supporters, Chris McNulty, done a great job, and it was said again then, so I'll take that. The three were on stage actually, having a bit of a chat to Jerry, and Marco Rajamaki was up with us as well, but it was just nice again to be back amongst the boys.
What does this man mean to you?
The gaffer. To me, the gaffer was more than just a manager. He was a guy you could go to any time for anything, and generally players did. They could always chap his door. He was never turn you away for anything. Always had time for everybody, and just a great man.
Brian Clough, how many dealings did you have with him other than that sort of infamous one? What was he like to be around?
He was, well, you just spoke about, he was totally opposite for the gaffer. You're going to a bigger club with better facilities, bigger players, bigger personalities, and obviously he dealt with everybody in his own way. But it was hard for me because I'm playing it in at Morton more or less every week, and you're maybe getting a wee bit of attention, and you're doing well, and then you get down there and you're just back to the bottom of the ladder. And as you said, I had an injury when I signed, which didn't help. So I wasn't training with the boys. I signed in March and I didn't train them to the pre-season in July, which isn't great. Best pals the physio, but that's not really what you want. But again, he was a guy who bring his dog into training, and if you caught his eye, he would hand you the dog lead and tell you to go and walk the dog and all these kind of things. But he was, a one-off, I think.
Did you see much of it? How much, in terms of a hands-on, did he have with the actual coaching side of things?
He was more, he left it like Archie Gemmill and Lee McCain, these kind of people. Ron Fenton's his number 2, so he was about, but I think he kind of left it more up to them just to go on with it, and he kind of overseen it when he was there.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's probably 2 well-known faces in this picture, but you would have played obviously with Roy Keane, and I don't know what your memories were of just watching Gascoigne even as you were kind of starting your career.
I was at the cup final as part of the Forest. Travelled with not the actual squad, but they took all the players down, and I remember it. I remember it quite well. But also played against Gascoigne when he was at Rangers, but it was just a guy that was on a different level in more ways than one. But ability-wise, it was frightening. So
would you have been tasked with marking him in those days?
Probably,
to the best of your ability.
I think actually, to be fair, Derek McInnes was up against them more. And I always remember it was touted at the time Derek was going to Rangers, and Gascoigne kind of spoke him through the game, even though we were in the opposite teams. But Derek, I think, was maybe trying too hard to impress, and Gazza was telling him just to get the ball and do things simple, and worked out from the end. He got his move. But no, it was a day where I think they beat us 3-0 that day at Ibrox. So it was another great day for the Morton travel support.
This man here, we're in Ayrshire, and this is Kris Boyd, SunSport's very own. But what were your memories of him coming through at Rugby Park when you were there as an experienced head?
Just a big dafty, to be honest, and he's not really changed much. But I always remember his name getting when I first went. His name was getting branded about.
Kris with a K.
Yeah, but even for the youths, just some boys scoring all these goals, and then he came and trained with the first team, and he wasn't out of place, and he wasn't phased. They would any foot, left and right. He loved a goal, and he would score. He would celebrate and tap in 40-yarder. Big man just loves scoring goals.
When he first came into the first team training environment, do you sometimes notice where you're like, he's not phased by this, or was he a little bit more quiet and unassuming?
No, I think, as I say, just a big boy again that just liked to play football, and he knew where the goals were, and I don't think he was shy, so he fitted in, no bother. And to be fair, I still keep in touch with the big man to this day. He's a great big boy, and just one of the best goal scorers I've ever seen.
Did you think he would go on to play with, Rangers, maybe even go on to higher level than, obviously went down south to Middlesbrough, but if things worked out differently, who knows?
Yeah, I always, you can tell with boys that are destined for big things, but again, I say, he scored goals for anywhere, any angle, any distance. It was nothing phased him. We'd try, see if it didn't go in, didn't bother him, try next time.
And we mentioned you're both from Ayrshire. We're back in Ayrshire today at Bonnet and Thistle. You spent a bit of time here as a youth.
I did.
What are your memories back then? We didn't play in this pitch, it would have been on the grass back then, but what are your memories of Bonnet and Thistle?
I had a great time at Bonnet, and I think what happened was I'd played the first team at Morton. I'd made my debut at Somerset just at the last game of the season, and then pre-season, I'd done the pre-season, and the last game of pre-season I put Whitehill welfare. I broke my ankle, and Higgy, the president here, sorry Mr Higgins, he was a manager at the time, and he was always on at me to go and play with Bonnet, and then I can't remember what happened, but for some reason I never went, and then after I broke my ankle I was coming back, and he approached me to say, look, we'll give you game time and you get your fitness. So I ended up, I was playing up front at the time and scoring goals, and We won the air tournament a couple of times, and my cousins played and my pals were playing. It was great, just a great time, and I really enjoyed it.
This picture here, can you make out what it is? Because it's quite a close-up, but
I've seen it a couple of times. That was the goal against Celtic at Rugby Park to get us into Europe last game of the season. I think I battered the two big centre-halves out the road to get my toe poke in, but I just remember Big Kris Innes had played his usual stand-finder ball, but it managed to stay in the park, and the Giacomo went down the line, crossed it in, and managed to just get in the end and get a wee toe poke in, and it crossed the line just, but it counted.
For Kilmarnock getting into Europe as well at that time, when did that even start getting spoke about as a goal for Killie that year?
Again, it's a hard one because we were a very top 4 team or bottom 2 team. We were never in the middle, always seemed to be. We got into Europe a few times through the fair play, if you remember that back in the day, which we took. We took it, but you'd rather get in there on credit and merit. So I think as it's approaching the end of the season and you're tallying up points and stuff, if it's doable, then that's your kind of target.
You played under a couple of quite iconic managers at Kilmarnock, Bobby Williamson and Jim Jeffries.
Yep.
Start with Bobby first. What was he like to work under?
Bobby was great. For me, obviously signed me, so I've got a lot to thank him for. But Bobby was very if it ain't broke type guy. So if we won a Saturday, if you were in the team the following Saturday, but he'd actually open the dressing room door and just say same team, same subs. That was it. And you knew what your job was. But it was great. I don't think he got enough credit. It was great. We used to have the back park at Rugby Park before the hotel was built, and we'd spend countless days out there, depending who we were playing, shaping up if it was a 3-5-2 or a 4-4-2. Generally I was in the middle, and if it went out wide I had to go out there and help Gus at right back, and then if it went out to left back with Dylan I would have to be out there, or Bakes or whatever. So we worked on stuff like that, and Bobby was great. But Bobby also had KB and Jim Clark, Jerry McCabe and Jim Clark, and the three of them just seemed to work well together. But Bobby liked a night out as well, so the players' nights out, you couldn't get rid of Bobby, he'd be the last man standing. But no,
any stories from those nights out? Was he leading the charge?
Generally Bobby wouldn't be too far away, because I think Bobby obviously was a player, and then he took, I think it was caretaker manager at Killie to start with, then he got the job, so it's probably in his head he was maybe still one of the players. But with a wee night out last year, we Mark Riley kind of arranged it all, and Bobby was over for that. He was looking well, so it was good to catch up with him.
Jim Jeffries obviously came in after Bobby. Were they completely different? No,
I think Jim is probably more vocal. Him and Billy were obviously been together for years. They were a double act. You knew what you were getting, and if you didn't win, you knew why you didn't win. And that would carry on to the Monday probably. It would boil over the weekend. But I would say, I don't like using old school, but I think Jim and Billy were kind of that way. If you were doing well for them then, but if you weren't, they would give you the old hairdryer.
So those hairdryers, were you ever in the receiving end, or do you remember a bad one for somebody else?
Not really. I always remember Billy picking and, not picking, that's not the right word, but singling Gary McDonald out. Big Gaz was about 6'2". I think they got beat off Partick, and we're all sitting our heads down, and Billy's getting him at tight, and he's saying, you didn't win a tackle, and look at the size of him, he's half your size, and he's winning tackles. And no, that way I'm just looked up and I thought, it's me he's talking about, and I thought, I'll take that. If I'll take a compliment off of Billy, that'll be all I'm getting. So, no, but I think that was just their way of trying to G up for the next time.
So you would have played alongside this man.
Yep.
French international coming to Rugby Park. What was he like?
The tightest man I've ever played with, apart from Martin Baker. But he could speak good English when it suited him, and then when you're asking for money for a night out, his English was kind of a wee bit no understanding type thing, so Jerome had to then get on. But ability wise, he was frightening. Even playing against him in training, it was like an exaggerated step over thing he done, and you knew he was going to do it, but you just still couldn't get near him.
Now, were you already at Kilmarnock when he arrived?
Yeah, I would have been.
So do you remember, was there much fanfare about him coming in, and did they roll the red carpet out?
No, I don't think so. It was because Jerome was there on Friday, and I think was Freddie there before him. I'm not sure, but we had the three of them anyway. And I think Jerome had done well because he'd kind of paved the way and done really well for like maybe the French players coming in. So I think the fans were excited to see what he brought to the team, and then obviously it was different class for us.
What type of player was he on the park? Was he kind of a lead by example, or could he could his English work on the park?
Well, he kind of old cliche, but he done the talking with his feet type thing, and it was great. Andy McLaren kind of played up alongside him at times. The two of them seemed to work well together. But he could see a pass, and he could go and take guys on, and he'd score the odd goal as well. So no, he really was. It's great for us.
So you remember when these two came to Kilmarnock as well, and you went to join them? What was it like playing with them first of all, just on the park?
Well, actually, the three of us signed at the same time. I think my mum still got a picture of the three of us in the. And we actually were out there at McInnes's house for a party. It was his 50th, so what will Derek be now? 53. So back then, and we recreated the picture of the three of us standing in the same place. We changed a wee bit, just a wee bit greyer and less hair and bigger bellies, but still the same picture in our heads. But no, they were great for us. We used to have the open day at Kilmarnock, and it was the year we signed, and they knew McCoist was coming. The place was queued out, and to be fair to him, he went along and signed everybody's programmes or whatever needed done. But I think a lot of people forget that the two of them, how good they were on the park. I think everybody likes a Durrant, tell us a McCoist story, a Durrant story, but on the park they were winners, and that obviously came for Rangers, and it was in their blood all the time just to win, and they probably instilled that as well in the players that were already there, because sometimes it takes a wee bit of freshness to come in the summer and gee the guys on a bit. But obviously great to have in the dressing room for slagging boys off, and if you weren't up for it, you could sink.
Do you recall any moments like that?
No, just a few times. Durrant liked to get it back as well. He didn't mind that. He wouldn't tell you that, but you could tell if you gave him one back, a wee one-liner, he was happy. He was happy with it. But totally different character. I mean, the best of pals, but totally different characters. Of course, they bubbly, and you would go out for a refreshment maybe after a game, and somebody would come up and say, "Ali, I met you 10 years ago in Morrison's and Largs," and he would say, "Oh, I remember that." Like, whereas Durrant, he would just say, "No, I never." So there were two different characters, but the two of them obviously worked great together.
And as you said, you all signed at the same time, played in that same team. For you, in terms of picking them out with a pass and things like that, I mean, they must be up there with some of the best players you've played with.
Durrant for me was the best at Kilmarnock I played with. But again, he was very good at letting you know when you'd done well as when you weren't doing well. But he would give you a wee bit of authority to go and play in the middle, where let you in to play in his position for a wee while, and then swap over, then he would switch with somebody else. And but McCoist's movement as well. He was supposed to be finished as well when he came to us, but he gets hat-trick. First game of the season against Hearts, he got a hat-trick. That's the closest I've ever been to hat-trick, so I congratulate him first for every goal. So I'm taking the hat-trick, but even if you watch the goals back, his movement, the third one as well, Durrant, he slipped him in. But the two of them obviously played together that many times, they can have this wee understanding.
You remember this one?
I do. So that's my boy, Ross. Luke's about 3 there, maybe. And he's now going to be 24, so I'm not sure we could recreate that one. I think it'd be me sitting in his knee. But it was good times as well, because I think that was probably me either coming towards the end of my career, or that was my career, or I think that was possibly over. That
was just before he signed for Ross County.
Was it? So it was over. Basically it was over then. I knew it was around about that time, because obviously the wee fella's age and stuff. But no, again, look, it just seems to have went in like that. It's one of the things you look back now, you look at pictures and you think that doesn't seem. I mean, I stopped playing 20 years ago this May, and it's flown in.